Welcome back to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at a superlative issue of Dragon magazine, Dragon 67. This was out in November of 1982. I was like the barbarian carving the turkey dinner on this cover. Very Thanksgiving flavor to this little cover. We're going to take a look inside what ended up being a very key issue of Dragon. This is the one that's got the astral adventuring in it. A lot of other planar stuff in here. 1982, we did not have much. So this was a godsend for that. So we're going to take a look through the magazine. This one, full disclosure, this one I did read a little bit beforehand because I remembered a few things about this. And when we get into it, I'm glad I read this a little bit beforehand. So today on page 121, Dragon number 67 from November 1982. Dragon 67. For reasons that'll become obvious as we go through the magazine, this one became I carried this one with my rule books for years. And there are a couple of reasons why I'll show you as we go inside. First off, this one, because of the use, the cover's a little more battered than usual for me. So right away, we open up two ads. Oh, okay. We got the D&D ad. They're advertising D&D in a magazine for D&D, which is pretty cool. And then for Iron Crown Enterprises Rollmaster series. I liked Iron Crown. I liked their product. I didn't care for their game system. I found it too complicated. And frankly, I think it slowed everything down. We get a nice short editorial from Kim Mohan, the table of contents, the masthead, and then letters from readers, translation and design opportunity for translating D&D to Japanese. New magic user spells by E. Gary Gygax. Sorry, he's credited here as Gary Gygax. These were indispensable. We used this like crazy. I actually had a friend who worked in an office at the time. I didn't. He had access to a copier. He burned me some copies of these. I carried those around. These are the spells that went pretty much word for word into Unearthed Arcana. They were already working hard on Unearthed Arcana or whatever it was going to be come, 1980, whatever they published it. So we were getting a lot of drops of different things that were going to be in this book. It wasn't even named Unearthed Arcana yet, but this is kind of where we saw all the stuff for the first time. So there's Alarm Armor. I just did a video on Armor not too long ago. Firewater, I've never seen it used. Grease is actually a surprisingly good spell. By the way, we ruled that Grease from the spell is flammable. Melt, Mount, Precipitation, Run. Just some really good ones. We've got a Crypt of the Dead ad from Computer Game Epics, Computer Games Thinkers Play. Never had experience with their products, but I would have loved to back then. And this is Mission Cabal Gaming Systems out of Seminole, Florida. I'm not really familiar with it. I remember seeing the ads in Dragon. That's all I really knew about them. So we're finishing up the various spells. And then we get Featured Creatures by Gary Gygax, official AD&D monsters for your campaign. The Grugach, the Valley Elf, the Kushi. And yes, Valley Elf was done as a spoof thing a few months later. Based on the song Valley Girl by Moon Unit Zappa. The Kushi, which is an elven dog. I like Kushi a lot. Now it's Spy's Advice by Merle Rasmussen. Basically, sage advice for top secret. How do you do this? How do you do that? That's pretty cool. Heroes of Olympus from Task Force Games. I'd never played that one. Souping Up the Spider. I occasionally go on kicks where spiders appear in my games a lot. My players know that. This is one of the inspirational articles for that. This is by Greg Chamberlain. It's a really nice little article if you ever want to know a lot about spiders. And you get a whole bunch of different spiders here in Monster Manual format. Pretty nice. Now we get Fantasy Tribe Range, The Skeletons from Citadel Miniatures. I don't know if I have these guys or not. City Book. Flying Buffalo Incorporated. They never bought any of those. Yaquinto Publications. If we said this, you probably wouldn't believe it. Man, Myth, and Magic was their product. There were so many products out in the early 80s, and I had, as everybody, I was in my early 20s and dating and things like that. I had limited funds and could only buy select things, so I ended up having to pass on a lot of these. Star Trek, The Correspondence Game. Never played that. Did play FASA's Star Trek game. That was pretty fun. And then joined the RPGA. Again, for reasons unremembered by me, I don't know why I never joined the RPGA until 2000. And then Rel Partha. I like Rel Partha minis a lot. I have this set. I think that's the only one on the page that I have, but I have that set. These are just nice minis. These Demigods in the World of Greyhawk, I've already done these guys out of this magazine. I did it about, I don't know, probably about 8-10 months ago. I took a look at all the gods in here. And I mentioned in that video about the Astral Plane article by Roger Moore with an introduction by E. Gary Gygax. Gary was in Dragon a lot in the early 80s. This is before he was really pitching the D&D productions out in Hollywood, trying to get the cartoon series going, a live action series or a movie. This is kind of where he was spouting off most of the time at the time, which was great. I love seeing stuff from Gygax. The Astral Plane by Roger Moore. This became the touchstone of how to adventure in the astral plane and in other planes. I kept this with me for years, probably till the publication of the Planer book in '87, whose name is escaping me for some reason. This was the book that was with me, this magazine. I didn't have a copy of this, photocopy of this, so I ended up having to carry it around. But if I was ever doing any game with another plane, this was with me. We used to play at a lot of other places. We moved the game around a lot. We didn't have one set place back in the day. So I had to carry this stuff with me, and that's why this magazine got kind of battered. Just really excellent article on going into the astral plane and then what you encounter there, and then where you can go from the astral plane, what planes it touches, how the spells work, druid, magic user, cleric spells. It's a really good article. And now we get Fey Defensor, however you want to say that word, by Alan Rogers, an AD&D scenario for characters, 6 to 8 characters, level 7 and up. You are finding some type of outpost on the astral plane. I actually ran this game back in the day. I modified it, of course, because I always do, but it's a Githyanki outpost. My players hated Githyanki and Githzeri. 2 words, Vorpal swords. The Void Cruiser was really cool. There's just all kinds of good things in this adventure, and I've used this adventure at least once. I might have used a little bit more, but it's a very good adventure. This continuation of the Astral Plane article by Roger Moore. Illusionist spells, magical alterations for magic items. Very long article. I liked it a lot. Dungeon walls. Very primitive then. Really not come into its own wouldn't for a lot of years. And then Wizards and Lizards, the finest 25 millimeter fantasy figures from Superior Models Incorporated. Not familiar with these guys either. Okay, so we've got Game Masters Hobbies Incorporated out of San Francisco. Your source for lots of different things. The Tin Soldier and Logan's Run, a play-by-mail game. And Refuge Required for Famous Fighting Fellowship. Excited about PH there. Phineas and Friends. Oh, the Phineas Fingers guys. Some fantasy jewelry. Mount St. Helens Dragon. Mount St. Helens having just erupted about a year and a half earlier. 2 years earlier on this. And Excalibur Sword. The 1982 Module Design Competition. I never entered one of these. I started plenty of modules, but never finished them. Never entered them. There's the official module design entry. And then Mayfair games. I've played a few of the Mayfair games. And then a fine list of hobby stores. I would always go to Illinois and take a look. And there's Games Plus, where we held Jump Point. And I was actually at the Hobby Chest several times up in Skokie, Illinois. That's a pretty good hike for me from here. But it was a good store. I don't know if they're still around or not. King of the Cats, fiction by Gillian Fitzgerald. I remember reading it. I'm never, just generic fiction in D&D really didn't do much for me. New Magic User Spells continued from Gary Gygax from earlier in the magazine. The Land Beyond the Mountains for use with the Fantasy Trip by Game Lords. There were a lot of D&D knockoffs in the early 80s for obvious reasons. An ad here, more spells, but an ad here for RAFM, Martian Metals, 15mm Traveler figures in Canada. I liked our RAFM, however you say it. I like the Martian Metals. Corsairs of Talabar from Judges Guild. Judges Guild did a lot of D&D supplements. And then next issue promising magic user spells levels 5 through 9. And then we complete out here. Here's Stoneskin for the first time. And then we have Melee, the intelligent DM. Some people apparently were picking on the game system a little bit, and Gary's defending it. Gary goes on a couple of rants in here. I'm going to put it down to he must have been having a bad day, week, month, because he rants a little bit to the point of actually insulting a letter writer, which I remember at the time surprising me because he had a reputation of being a pretty reasonable guy and pretty approachable. And these rants don't really say that that's who wrote them. I'm just going to put it down that he had a bad couple of days. Daredevils, The Adventures by Fantasy Games Unlimited. Cosmic Encounter, science fiction gaming at its best. And then Magic Bone by DB Enterprises. Oh, out of Crestwood, Illinois. How did I miss these guys? 14030 Laramie Street, Crestwood, Illinois. That was about 2 miles from my house. Huh, I missed it. That's funny. That's really funny. And then The Whole Truth about TSR buying out Grenadier. That was a rumor that was going around in the early 80s. Really didn't happen. And then Gygax defending his earlier review of ripping the then new movie Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He wasn't wrong. That's not a great movie. It's come to be beloved now, but I remember being very disappointed having read the Conan comics and the Robert E. Howard source material. I was disappointed in that film. But Gary gets kind of in everybody's face about it in here too. Again, I'm just going to put it down to a bad week. An excellent ad for Traveler from FASA. I think I have all those products. And then loyal readers, E. Gary Gygax takes letters on new classes and a long look at comeliness. So he talks about forthcoming classes here, and we get a preview here of what becomes Unearthed Arcana. And then we also get a look at what will become Oriental Adventures. He talks about moving the monk over there and because the monk doesn't really fit. And here's our first look at comeliness as the 7th trait and all the effects of comeliness. We did not use comeliness from this. We didn't use comeliness until it became air quotes official on air quotes in 1985 in Unearthed Arcana. And at that, we almost never referred of comeliness. Talk about a dump stat. An ad for the Aftermath, role-playing excursion in the post-Holocaust world. And poker, chess, and the AD&D system, the official word on what's official. E. Gary Gygax again. Gary was very heavy in these pages at this time. Gary goes through this article, and I remember reading this magazine and kind of laughing about it at the time because, keep in mind, D&D says right in the books, take whatever rules you want, add or subtract rules as you see fit, make it your game. This article tells us by Gary Gygax how that's not the way to do it. You should play the game as written. You should not be adding or subtracting stuff. If you don't play it as written, then you're not really playing AD&D. You're playing some hybrid that you've kind of made up. And then later in the article, and this is a very long article, later in the article, he goes on to tell us, well, we get a preview of the barbarian there and the diva. I always like divas. We get here where Gary goes to other topics about how you have to play D&D as written. And he says in the same article, I hate the grapple rules that were put into the rule books that he was talked into putting in, per his words. One severe problem with my own game system. I got talked into doing complicated and time-consuming series for grappling, pummeling, and overbearing in a weak moment. I've regretted them ever since. I tend to use a very simple system, which we initially developed in 1974. So he's saying in this article, if you don't play D&D as written, you're not really playing D&D. And then later in the same article says, well, he takes stuff out that he didn't like. So I remember at the time being kind of surprised that this saw print. And again, Gary Gygax was D&D at the time, and I'm putting it down to just a bad couple of days, and I'm not going to read more into it than that. But I was really surprised by this, and honestly, it did change my take on him for a while. It took me a little while to come back from these, but everybody does stuff that they regret later because they were angry in a moment or whatever, and that's fine. I put it down to that, and it doesn't change anything for me. A nice ad for Castle Creations and the Aftermath, and then the roll of books, Myth, Legend, and Folklore. So Bullfinch's mythology. I took those out of the library a lot in the early days of D&D. How to use these books and not spend a fortune. I went to the local library. Troll Pack. Nice review of a game, Troll Pack. I'm not familiar with that one. Cast your own fantasy figures. You can mold your own fantasy figures. I never tried that. And then Lords of Space from Gregory Enterprises. A scheduled convention coming up. Look at all 4 of them there. Knights of Chivalry, play by mail. Nice ad for Space Opera, the Traveler kind of clone. GDW's Great Games giveaway. I never was at a hobby store that was doing this giveaway. I wish they had, that I had. I might have just missed it. I don't know. But I was playing Traveler at the time and ended up not getting a shot at any of these giveaways. So 40 years later, oh well. And does your Vorpal Blade go snicker, or does it just snicker? Wheaton Publications, role-playing game about being a kid. Electronic Dice Kit. Griffin Games miniatures case. And play the complete wizard outfit for $70, which is a lot of money back in 1982 to get a wizard outfit. Realms of Wonder, the upcoming 1983 calendar by Beauty from the Imagination of Tim Hildebrandt. I always loved his artwork. So get yours today, because you never know when it's going to be 1983 again. And then just some more ads here for Rolaids. The Oracle from Horizon International. Free lead figure with purchase from Hobby House in Westmoreland. I have that little guy. I think I have 2 of them. Campaign series, game grids, limited edition Wandering Monsters silkscreen shirt, Illusions into Reality cotton shirts, and then a Grenadier model ad. I always like this one. Like looking at these various Grenadier figures. Love Grenadier. Dragon Mirth. There we go. And got a couple of cartoons there, and there's more where this came from. So you could buy back issues of Dragon. And then Wormy. Yeah, why not? Dave Trampier. Liked Wormy a lot. And then What's New with Phil and Dixie by Phil Foglio. I always look forward to that. And like I said in past ones, I am guilty of sometimes just skipping to the back and reading cartoons first. And then Middle Earth, the MERP system, Middle Earth role-playing system from Iron Crown Enterprises. Again, I liked some of their products. I just didn't care for the game system. And then Take Your Imagination to a New Level. These were 2 little terrain sets that they had. They were about 18 inches by 18 inches. Could have been 2 feet by 2 feet. Let's see here. 12 inches by 18. 12 inches by 18. And the idea was you had a dungeon set up, and you could go into this dungeon room, and you could go up here. But that's all they did. I looked at them, and they were not horribly expensive, but for 1982, I think they're around $15. It was a little more than I wanted to spend on something I could only use once or twice. And the same thing, the orc setup here. It was just very limited. I love 3D terrain, always have loved 3D terrain. I've always used miniatures, but I never really got around to getting those. So there you have it. That's a look at Dragon number 67. I hope you liked it. Give me some feedback. Let me know if you want me to keep doing these. I enjoy these. I love going back and taking a look at these. And since we're doing the 40th anniversary thing, that's why I've been doing them on the 40th anniversary of their release. So nice Thanksgiving picture for the month of November. So again, I'd be happy to keep doing these. Let me know. I need a little feedback. And that's it. Please like and subscribe. Tell your friends. And I'll see you next time on page 121.